Recently, I had some ideas for multiple units that I'd like to see in Train Sim World at some point, although, to be honest, I don't expect any of them to come to fruition, even if they are mostly one-handle units, and Dovetail really likes that sort of thing, so it seems. Indeed, almost nothing that has been released so far is a specific route, locomotive, or multiple unit that I wanted to see in the game. The only exceptions that come to mind are the Class 380 Desiro and the yet-to-be-released San Bernardino line. The four proposals in this video are each from a different country, namely the United Kingdom, New Zealand, Germany, and Switzerland. My first proposal this time around is the Class 360 electric multiple unit, more specifically, the 4-car 360/1 variant. Only 26 examples of this class were built by Siemens of Germany between 2002 and 2005, with 21 of them being 4-car units for the Great Eastern Main Line. Their first operator was First Great Eastern. The remaining 5 units, designated as 360/2, were 5-car sets for Heathrow Connect, the now defunct stopping service from London Paddington to Heathrow Airport. Although I rarely, if ever, run the 360 in Train Simulator due to her rather dated modelling, I still like this unit for her unusual appearance compared to a normal Desiro, such as the Class 450. It's weird seeing a unit from this family with no gangway on the cab end, and as for why the 360s were designed this way, I honestly don't remember. In any case, the 360's cab view doesn't feel anywhere near as cramped as it does in the Class 450. The 360 can only run on lines electrified at 25 kV AC from overhead wires, while the 450 only runs on the southern region lines electrified at 750 volts DC from a third rail. As for what route the 360 could be made for, I suggest the Great Eastern Main Line from London Liverpool Street to Colchester, plus the branches to Braintree, Sudbury, and Colchester Town. I say Colchester and Colchester Town instead of Ipswich or Norwich because, given Dovetail's habit of questionable decisions on where to end route coverage, looking at you Great Western Express, I don't expect them to do the whole Great Eastern Main Line if they ever brought it to TSW. As it stands, the route from London Liverpool Street to Colchester Town is 53.7 miles, or 86.4 kilometres long, and the branch line from Whittam to Braintree would add an extra 6.3 miles, or 10.1 kilometres, to the route coverage, while the branch from Marks Tey to Sudbury would add an extra 11.6 miles, or 18.6 kilometres. If the route was set prior to 2015, then the Class 315 could also be included in a Greater Anglia livery, in order to represent the pre-Crossrail stopping services from London Liverpool Street to Shenfield. Come to think of it, the Romford to Upminster line could also be added to make the route that little bit more interesting, and provide another place to run the 315. There was no reason for Dovetail to cut it off for the original London to Ipswich route in TS Classic. As for motive power that would have to be included for the Gainsborough line, Marks Tey to Sudbury, my money's on the Class 156. In real life, the Class 360s don't run on the Great Eastern Main Line anymore. The 4-car 360/1s were all transferred to East Midlands Railway in 2020 and 2021, having been replaced on the GEML by Class 720 and Class 745 EMUs. The 360s are now used on services from London St Pancras to Corby, a route that was only recently electrified. My next proposal is for the AM class electric multiple units in New Zealand, more specifically, the City of Auckland. So far, 72 examples of this class have been built by CAF of Spain, with the first batch, comprising 57 units, entering service between April 2014 and July 2015, then the second batch, comprising 15 units, came along in 2019 and 2020. Another batch of 23 units is under construction at the time of uploading, ahead of the opening of the City Rail link. AMs replaced a wide variety of diesel locomotives, multiple units, and coaches, which were not built specifically for Auckland's suburban service, unlike the AMs. The network is electrified at 25,000 volts AC from overhead wires. Each AM set is made up of 3 coaches, classified as AMP, motorcar with pantograph, AMT, centre trailer, and AMA, motorcar without pantograph. The AMT has a low floor section with priority seats and space for wheelchairs, bicycles and prams. Meanwhile, the AMP and AMA don't have low floor sections, only standard transverse seating throughout the coaches. First batch units are numbered from 103 to 714, while second batch units are numbered from 805 to 973. The numbers are not actually consecutive due to the way the computerized numbering system works, as the last digit in each unit's number is a check digit, although I forget exactly what that means. For the longest time, Auckland didn't have electric trains, and had to make do with repurposed diesel multiple units, locomotives, and coaches. The ADL and ADK class DMUs came from Perth in Australia, while between 2014 and 2015, refurbished DC and DFT/DFB locomotives were used to haul SA coaches and SD cab cars. The SAs and SDs were rebuilt from ex-British Rail Mark II coaches. There was also a set of ex-Queensland Rail SX coaches, which were hauled by DBR locomotives running in a top and a tail formation. 2 of those DBRs, namely 1199 and 1254, are now preserved at the Goldfields Railway in Waihi and the Glenbrook Vintage Railway near Auckland respectively. Since their introduction, the AMs have now taken over all suburban services in Auckland. The central hub of the network is Britomart Station, which opened in 2003, and is located near the foot of Queen Street. And from Britomart Station, the 4 lines run out to Swanson, Onehunga, Manukau, and Papakura. The section to Pukekohe is currently closed for electrification work. If, by some miracle, we ever got an Auckland suburban route in TSW, I wouldn't expect Dovetail, or a third-party developer, to do the entire network. As such, I'll only suggest the eastern line from Britomart to Manukau, a distance of 23 kilometres, or 14 miles. Most of this route is also used by KiwiRail freight trains going to and from the Auckland port. The section through Orake and Meadowbank is nice and scenic, with the railway passing Judges Bay before running past Parnell Baths and across the causeway past Hobson Bay and Orake Basin. Between Meadowbank and Glen Innes, the railway passes through the 596-metre-long Purewa Tunnel. Manukau Station opened in 2012, and it's the terminus of a short branch off of the North Island main trunk. The branch, which leaves the main line south of Puhinui Station, was the first newly constructed railway line in the city since the section from Westfield Junction to Auckland via Orake, which opened in 1930 as an alternative to the steeply graded route via Newmarket, although that line is still active today. An interesting feature of the Britomart to Manukau route is its complete lack of level crossings. As for service patterns on the Eastern Line, the normal off-peak and weekend frequency is a train running every 20 minutes in each direction, while weekday peak time services are increased to every 10 minutes in each direction. It takes 37 minutes to complete the trip from Britomart to Manukau, with intermediate stops at Orake, Meadowbank, Glen Innes, Panmure, Sylvia Park, Otahuhu, Middlemore, Papatoetoe, and Puhinui. If the Eastern Line was brought to TSW, I would prefer the time period to be sometime between 2016 and 2019, between the opening of the new bus and train interchange at Otahuhu and the rebuilding of Puhinui Station. On a personal note, I remember meeting an AM driver at Manukau Station in November 2014, and he even let me have a look in the cab. The unit in question was AM253, and on the other platform was an ADK/ADB set on a farewell rail tour. My next pick is the Flexity Swift U5 from the Frankfurt U-bahn in Germany. For context, the system in Frankfurt am Main, despite being branded as a U-bahn, is very different from the more traditional underground system up in Berlin. Instead, this is a Stadtbahn system with an interesting mix of underground sections, street running, and dedicated rights-of-way, either between two halves of a street or on an entirely separate alignment in borderline rural environments. The signalling systems are different depending on whether you're underground or at street level, and overall, this network is quite a complex beast. The U5 is a reasonably modern train, having entered service from 2008 onwards. There are three variants of this design, with two of them appearing in TS Classic, namely the U5-25 and U5-50, of which there are 94 and 130 examples respectively. These are both two-car units, but the U5-50 only has one cab, so it has to be coupled back-to-back with another U5-50. These units can be coupled together to form anything from 2 to 8 car trains. And apart from multiple working with their classmates, the U5s are also compatible with the older Siemens U4, a design that dates back to 1994. The U5s run system-wide, but the U4s only run on lines U1, U2, U3, U8, and U9. We already have the complete Frankfurt U-bahn network in TS Classic, and out of the 85 stations, 27 are underground. If the U-bahn is ever brought to TSW, I don't expect the developers to include the whole network, so instead, I'll only suggest 3 of the 9 lines, namely U4, U5, and U7. These 3 specifically because U4 shares parts of its route with lines U5 and U7, so despite not being the full network, we would at least get a small network-style route in TSW. For reference, U4 runs from Enkheim to Bockenheimer Warte via Seckbacher Landstrasse, then U5 runs from Hauptbahnhof to Preungersheim, and U7 runs from Enkheim to Hausen, or at least, it did run to Hausen when the TS Classic version was made. Since 2018, U7's western terminus has been Pronheim-Heerstrasse. The route lengths for lines U4, U5 and U7 are 11.08, 7.7 and 11.79 km respectively. I like the U4 line because of its frequent use of the full-length 8-car trains, not to mention the short-form services out of Bockenheimer Warte that only go as far as Seckbacher Landstrasse. These are the only Frankfurt U-bahn services that are entirely underground. As for U5, this is an interesting line too, albeit for very different reasons from U4. This line only has a short underground section before branching off at Konstablerwache, the third station east of Hauptbahnhof, and once it leaves the tunnels, the line has a street-running section along a former tram route. After a sharp right turn at Sozialzentrum, U5 runs on a dedicated alignment next to the street for the rest of the journey to Preungersheim. It's also worth mentioning the old PTB trams of 1972, which ran on the U-bahn between 1978 and 2016. For many years, these were the only units allowed on line U5 because they were the only units on the system equipped with fold-out steps to cater for stops that, initially, didn't have platforms. The PTB was brought to Train Simulator by Rail Traction, and they have included functioning steps, as demonstrated here. One last thing for this section of the video. A Frankfurt U-bahn route in Train Sim World would need to include a functioning announcement system, just like the TS Classic version. This is a very important part of the driving experience, especially since you have to set it up at the start of a run, and I would be very disappointed if it got left out of TSW. The vast majority of stations only have their announcements in German, but 6 stations at the western end of line U4 also have English announcements, as demonstrated here on a train going to Bockenheimer Warte.
Nächste Station, Festhalle, Messe. Umsteigemöglichkeit zu den Straßenbahnlinien 16 und 17 sowie zur Buslinie 50. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung links. Next station, Festhalle, Fair and Exhibition Center. Change here for tram lines 16 and 17 and bus line 50. Exit on the left.
Lastly, I want to see the Rettische Bahn ABE 4/4 Mark III brought to TSW as an add-on for Rivet Games' Bernina line add-on. This is despite the fact that I still refuse to buy the route unless the coverage is extended to St. Moritz. At least we've got the full route in TS Classic, although it's sold in 2 parts. Thomson Interactive made St. Moritz to Poschiavo, and Rivet made Poschiavo to Tirano. But you need to download a merged route from Steam Workshop if you want to go from St. Moritz to Tirano in one shot. As for what the ABE 4/4 Mark III even is, she's an electric railcar that's used exclusively on the Bernina line. Indeed, she's only equipped to run on that line's 11,000 volts DC overhead wires system, while the rest of the RHB network is electrified at 11 kV 16 2/3 Hz AC from overhead wires. 6 examples of this class were built by a consortium of the Swiss Locomotive and Machine Works and ASEA Brown Boveri, entering service between 1988 and 1990. The line from St. Moritz to Tirano is 62 km long with a ruling gradient of 1 in 14, but with a power output of 1,360 horsepower, the ABE 4/4 Mark III is more than capable of tackling this difficult run. These units are numbered from 51 to 56, and have a top speed of only 65 km per hour, but the average speeds on the Bernina line are usually much lower than 65. In any case, the TS Classic version of this railcar is part of Thomson Interactive's RHB Enhancement Pack 3 add-on. In this pack, you get the standard RHB Red livery, along with number 51 in her UNESCO livery, and number 52 in her Bernina Line Centenary livery. The ABE 4/4 Mark IIIs are capable of running on their own or coupled in pairs, and they often act as locomotives too. If this railcar class was ever added to Train Sim World, that would also present a good opportunity to add the Bernina Express coaches for the ABE 8/12 Allegra to haul. For whatever reason, Rivet didn't bother including these coaches in the TSW version of the Bernina line, another reason to avoid buying the route. And there you have it, another random selection of motive power that I'd like to see in Train Sim World. Yes, I have realised that they're all electrics, but that's not to say that steam or diesel locomotives are worthless by comparison. I dare say I'll make another motive power wish list at some point, depending on whether or not I have any good ideas. And I just hope that whatever Dovetail Games announces in their next Dovetail Direct live stream will at least be somewhat interesting. But for all I know, it could just be the unwanted Train Sim World 5, when this game doesn't need yet another unnecessary sequel.